Okay, thank you, Jimmy, and everyone for joining us today. So as Jimmy said, I am a graduate student at the University of Arkansas in the Public Policy program, specializing in the study of food systems and particularly K-12 community food systems. One of the reasons that I am particularly grounded and focused on this work is that I also teach at an elementary school that's K through 4. I run the school garden program and nutrition education. And similar to what John said, we do food waste audits on a regular basis, an annual basis with the students in our school. And our audits are focused on post-consumer plate waste and not back at the house kitchen issues with the actual meal prep. So this is solely focused on plate waste. And the reason being that we want to not only conserve our resources, help our schools save money if there are items that are regularly getting tossed that don't need to be, and we want to convey a message to our students that unopened items are definitely not trash, and a conservation message that they can repeat every day, every time they come to the classroom. So, Jimmy, are you advancing or am I advancing?
Either or. Do you want to? You can just use those arrows.
Okay, I see. Thanks. Okay, so one of the reasons why this is really important, reducing food waste is really important, is that primarily, and somebody asked us in the chat box earlier, inquiring about John's comment about we certainly don't want to encourage kids to donate food. What he means by that is that we want all of us want our students to eat what they take and to get full and to feel fed and to be well nourished throughout their day. So the deal with food waste, post-consumer food waste, is that it's an indicator that the students have not consumed something that they selected, which means that either they changed their mind or they got busy or there's behavioral economic things or whatnot. And so in Arkansas, we have a really high childhood food insecurity rate and, ironically, a childhood obesity rate. And so these are some of our statistics. And so it's a real focus for us as a state policy, but then also as practitioners to do our best to make sure that our kids are eating the food that we all work really hard to prepare for them. So food recovery in the K-12 environment, there's 2 versions of that we use. Food recovery from the students, as we just talked about. The pictures that you're seeing right now are from the food waste audits that I did last year. I started out doing one school, the school that I work in, and then when I saw the results, my research question was actually more about to what extent are students consuming or not consuming the fruits and vegetables in regards to the Healthy and Hunger-Free Kids Act. So I started there, and then after I did the first food waste audit, I did it for 5 days at a time, or 5 days in a row. And what happened was that, as John mentioned earlier, the milk waste really popped up. And so that became a really intriguing phenomenon. I was like, why is there so much food waste? Let's go look around. So I partnered with our Washington County Environmental Affairs Office, and we actually replicated our food waste audit at 4 other schools in the county. And I purposely picked a very rural school, 2 urban schools, and a semi-rural school just to look at any of the variables there and to see if there were any commonalities or big differences. And so the commonality, as you see in these photos, is there's a lot of unopened milk. There are a lot of unopened milks and a lot of unopened packages. The top left-hand photo is from a breakfast at a very rural school. So kids who are coming in to school and getting the free breakfast, and these are the items that were unopened that otherwise go in the trash every day. So there's yogurt, there's milk, and there's Cocoa Puff bars. So that's a whole nother topic. On the right hand, you'll see the picture of these smiling kiddos. That's at my school. And so that was one day's audit. And so one of the remedies that we were able to work around or work with our school staff is that we do the share table, and especially with the elementary age students, slicing the apples makes a big difference. One of the things that is just a real world logistic for these kids is that their teeth are falling out of their head. And so it's really hard for them to bite into a whole apple, especially second and third graders, because their teeth are really loose and they're kids, and that's what happens. So when we slice them up, then we saw a reduction in that. So this is what the bottom left-hand photo is, what our share table looks like. We have cups for water, we have the milk cartons, and then we have apples that are in there. So the next slide, this is about food recovery coming into the school from an external source. So one of the things that is a big myth, excuse me, in food insecurity conversations and whatnot is that there's not enough food, and that it's a scarcity issue is why childhood hunger persists in many communities. And while that may be true in some communities, especially very rural or food desert communities, in urban areas like ours, we are surrounded by surplus food that just goes in the trash every day. So one of the things that I did this year was reached out to one of our local grocers. In this case, Natural Grocers is the store that we are partnering with. It's a franchise grocery store chain that's based in Colorado, but they have a couple of stores in Arkansas and one in Fayetteville. And so I partnered with them. We started out last summer. They have a community kitchen, and I did a Kids in the Kitchen class with them just as a summer camp and to kind of feel out what a partnership with them would look like. So I asked them during that day camp, culinary camp experience, that they would hold all of the produce that they pulled off of their shelves for us during that week so that we could use it and incorporate it into the culinary classes. And so what we found was that my budget for the whole week ended up being, I fed 60 kids for 5 days for $17 because I didn't have to buy any produce. All I had to buy was yogurt and a few ingredients to make tzatziki dip. So after that experience, the store personnel and I got together and we talked about what it would look like if we started a partnership once the school year started in August, which is when school starts for us. So what we do is every Tuesday and Thursday, I have an intern from the University of Arkansas who goes to Natural Grocers at 2:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Consistency is a very big deal because they're trying to run a business and they need to rely on us to be where we're going to be when we say we're going to be there. So we're there every Tuesday and Thursday at 2:30, and we pick up whatever they pulled off the line for that day. So as you can see from these pictures, it's a substantial amount of food. The top left-hand corner is a photo of our dietetics intern doing some food prep, and this was one day. So there's tons of apples and oranges, and then there's leafy greens. And so what we do with those is I have an after-school program, a Healthy Choices program, for about 22 kids. And so we wash everything, of course, in a 3-bay sink, and then we process it up, and that's the middle top picture that you see. We process it and put it on cutting boards and then serve it to our students for healthy snacks in the after-school program. Sometimes there's so much that the students don't eat it all, and as you can see, these are really healthy items that we're putting out. And so some of the parents who come to pick their kids up are like, I can't believe my kids just ate a whole thing. We talk about being the rainbow, so they have to take one of everything, and they can't believe their kids are just eating this really basic, healthy produce unprompted and just because they like it and because it tastes good. And so that's what happens, but then we often still have additional food left because we only have 22 kids, and they do eat a lot. They eat a lot. But there is also a lot of food. So what we do with that is that you can see in the very upper right-hand picture, there's some bags of produce, and in the middle, very bottom picture, there's also some bags of produce. And so what we do with our surplus is we bag it up and we send it home with the students to share with their families, and we send out literature with that, Chop magazines, information from Extension Service about Arkansas grown products, as well as USDA materials that come down from Team Nutrition with recipe cards. The picture on the bottom right-hand side is a picture of what our students call sad bananas, but they're not sad when you turn them into a smoothie. So this is one of my favorite kids. His name is Tucker on the right. He's making a sad banana face. But so we turn them into smoothies, and the kids love them, and they get to, enjoy the smoothies themselves. But then they also are in charge of, I'm there, obviously, because I'm the one taking the picture in behind the blender, but they help make it. And so this is one of their favorite things, is to be involved with the food and to touch the blender, to use the culinary knives. We have plastic safety knives and things like that they use. And I could talk about this all day, but I won't in the interest of time. Next slide. So why school-based food recovery? So whether it's coming from post-consumer plate waste from the students, or whether it's coming from surplus food in the community to your school, one of the beautiful things about working through a school as a sort of a ground zero for community food security is the idea that our public schools really are the original food hubs. And so we have the infrastructure exists to use these facilities for that purpose, as well as being able to just increase the utilization of surplus food in the community that would have otherwise gone in the trash. So it's really a win on multiple levels. We are able to get this food out of the waste stream at the community level. We're able to bring it to the students at our school, and then they are able to consume it and learn about it, and then the extra goes out to their families. So as a former AmeriCorps member, one of the things that was really instilled in us in our training was this idea that if you go to where the people are, you don't have to have a rally. And what I mean by that is the kids are already here at the school. And I do love working with community food banks, and I love working with community meal programs, but our kids are at our schools every day. And so this is where the rally is, with being able to use these facilities to really lock in the idea that if we focus on our kids and focus surplus food on feeding our kids first, and then working with the surplus food, providing it to them through their families directly, that is a very efficient means of getting the food out into the community, from the community through our students, and then back out. So I have a poll for you guys. Does your school, Jimmy, I can only see part of this question. Got a dot in it. Let's see. I'm going to guess here. Does your school allow community members to rent or use your school's kitchen? That's the question. So in our case, we use our school's kitchen to process the food. We have our own cutting boards and knives and colanders, so that we're not, messing with any of the district's equipment. But we also don't use any, machinery in the kitchen. We're not cutting meat or anything like that. And then we actually hired a school district nutrition staff member to be there with us when we are in the kitchen, just to make sure that we're following all the food safety protocols and guidelines, and that when we clean up that the district kitchen is exactly the shape that it's supposed to be in for the nutrition staff that come in behind us the next morning. So that's about $10 an hour for that person to be there, but it's money well spent. And our PTO at our school is very kind and really supportive, and so they facilitate that fund and that payment. So I'm going to close the poll. And so barriers to food conservation in the K-12 environment. So the things that I have encountered, and you guys may or may not have encountered this or may have different resources that you can chime in here, but I feel like that there's a lot of confusion regarding mandatory milk. So what I mean by that is I am a person who grew up where milk was mandatory. You absolutely had to take the milk. And so that's just kind of like instinctive in people who are now in the professional age of being as service providers. However, milk is not mandatory in the offer versus serve requirements. So I put a link in here for y'all to check out just to explore that further if you are so inclined. Confusion regarding the reservicing of unopened milks, fruits, and packaged items. There was a question earlier about can you put unopened milks back in the cooler from which they came and then resell them, and that is the answer to that is no, because that's considered double dipping. But there is clarification on what you can do with it. So what's already been discussed, the share tables and the donations, et cetera. There's confusion regarding the impact of behavioral economics on choice. The Ben Center at Cornell has some excellent information about that. Jimmy has a really cool infographic about that he'll share with us at the very end. Just some things that you guys are probably all very familiar with about maybe moving recess before lunch or making sure that there's water cups available so that students can choose water to drink instead of selecting a milk that they may not want. There's also confusion just in general about the recognition that the school cafeteria is a learning environment. And so this is something that is really key to the approach that we take with all of our schools, which is that it has been the case that the cafeteria is really the only space in the building that's not considered a formal learning environment, whereas the things that the students are learning every day when they participate in school meals are lessons for life. And so we consider the cafeteria as a very important classroom, and so we treat it as such and have educational material posted everywhere and try to make sure that there's somebody there in the cafeteria during the lunch period, that the aide that is there is not just there as a volume police, but is there as a health coach for the kids, encouraging them to finish their tray or finish their food and whatnot, and just to be, in general, an encourager. Some tools for food recovery donations. Several of these have already been mentioned. The legal guide to food recovery. This is the product of one of my colleagues at the University of Arkansas, the food law program. Nicole Savita and Susan Schneider produced this legal guide to food recovery, which goes into great detail about food recovery law and just the different nuances of that. I think the next step for the legal guide is to really focus on the K-12 education piece of that. We have a food waste audit guide for the K-12 environment that will be published in the next month or so, and maybe that will be a really good springboard for diving into that a little further. Tax donations. So this is where if you work with an external partner, such as our partnership with Natural Grocers, this is added incentive to keep good data. So we keep a spreadsheet. We weigh all the boxes of food. We pair weight the box first, and then we weigh all the food that comes in and keep a separate categories for the food that's distributed to the students or served to the students, and then also the food that's distributed to the parents. And so what that can do is that it can be an incentive for the grocery store of your choice to be a committed participant because, A, it helps them with avoided disposal costs because food waste is heavy. It also helps them as a community partner, so that's some PR perks maybe from their end. But it's also a possible tax deduction for them at the end of the year. So we keep really good data for our purposes, but then the data is also very useful for the grocer at the end of the year. Another resource is from the USDA Office of the Chief Economist, guidelines about food recovery and donations. And then, of course, the EPA's Food Recovery Challenge and the food waste hierarchy focused on feeding people first. And so, to me, I think this is a really exciting time in the food conservation conversation that the USDA and the EPA are working so closely together to facilitate this conversation. And I appreciate the good work that's being done by both agencies. So lastly, this is my contact information. These are, the picture on the bottom right is a picture of one of our food waste audits at Washington Elementary. And the folks pictured and the grown-ups pictured in this photo are representative of what it takes to really pull together a team that understands the benefits of doing a food waste audit at your school. So these students that are pictured and right behind the table, they all helped with the audit and they collected the data. And then we used the data to help them hit some math benchmarks and build graphs of what happened and what they observed. So in the photo, that's me on the very left. That's our cafeteria manager next to me, our assistant principal next to her. Our good friend Stephen Sturdivant from the EPA is in the middle, and next to him is our district math coach. Next to her is our Washington County Environmental Affairs Coordinator, and then on the other end is our school principal. So this is really the leadership team that helped us pull together our food waste audit and create a very seamless and smooth experience for both the staff and the students that had a lot of benefits. So, thank you.